I'm recording from now on. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to try wheeling the bike and chatting at the same time.
Okay, sure.
I've just bumped into Frankie as he walks down the canal on a very, very hot day. Let me just go
my
the
pronouns are they, actually.
I beg your
they,
pardon.
them.
They, them. Frankie, as they walk down the canal. So Frankie, just in the short time it's taken me to get out my gear, I've learnt that you come from Cornwall and you run a music studio.
Yeah.
What have you, generally my first question is always, what have you been thinking about today as you've walked down this canal, started your day?
Ooh. What have I been thinking about? It's kind of one of those questions that your mind goes a bit blank when you ask.
Were you quite in neutral?
Yeah, I think so. I just I walked along London Fields and I popped into what's it called? Clemson's, and I got a nice flat white and a pan of chocolat from there.
Oh, very nice.
And I went and sat underneath one of the trees up by the bench up there, and
Excellent.
yeah, I was just kind of enjoying the day, really.
That's a nice way to start. It's nice when you have the time and the space to go, I'm going to start it slow.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm going to start it at my pace, because I think quite often in life it is beyond our control. It's like, I have to be here at this time, I have to go on this tube, I have to...
It is and it isn't, because in a lot of ways it's like we look at things as being beyond our control, but you do have the power gradually to shape your life in a way that affords you more agency, with the choices of what you do.
That's good.
So,
I like that approach. So it's kind of like, don't feel you're hemmed in.
Yeah, I think for me particularly over these past couple of years, I've kind of tried to build more a life where I have like the flexibility to do what I want,
Right.
Because so I remember at the end of 2024, I very briefly had like a real job for 6 weeks,
right,
which wasn't very enjoyable at all. But I worked for 6 weeks as a corporate AV technician for a big company that I won't name. But
so AV being audio visual.
Yeah.
Right.
So in the corporate world, kind of setting up. They do all these big kind of trade shows at like the Excel Centre and the Business Design Centre, setting up like TVs and little PA systems for that. And
so you've got all the technical knowledge, and it wasn't that it was stressful to know the job. It
was more so that so basically I went to uni to what I studied was music recording and production. And I came out of uni and I spent a few years working as a live sound tech, like freelancing.
Got you.
And then at a certain point I thought, it would be nice to have some stability.
Yeah.
So I decided to look for a real job.
Yeah.
And then I got a real job, and the thing that just sent me nuts about it was the lack of agency, like I say, in terms of having someone else tell me where to go and when and all these kind of things.
That's interesting.
And I think for me, so I'm autistic and I've got ADHD.
Right.
I was diagnosed with both of them last year, but I've kind of suspected for a little while now.
Yeah.
And I deal with quite like fluctuating capacity depending on my
Interesting.
health and periods of burnout and all these kind of things, So
and as
really,
have you had to really get used? Have you had to learn all of these things and learn your own balance as the years have gone by? With what you've described,
so. Yeah.
Like nobody else is going to help you through it. You just got to go, right, I know myself. Let me just work it out.
Yeah. So really, like the past 2 years after leaving that job at the end of 2024 has been this kind of process of like rebuilding a life that works for me, because I think I came out of that feeling like quite low, both in terms of like my mental health and my confidence and all these kind of things.
Confidence is a really difficult thing, because when it goes, for any of us, I think it's very hard for us to grab it back. When it goes, it's just gone.
Yeah.
How did you do the rebuilding of your confidence?
It's a few things, really. I would say a big aspect of it has been I got into doing this Buddhist practice that my dad has been a part of for about 20 years now, with an organisation called the SGI. It's like a school of Buddhism based on the teachings of this 11th century scholar called Nichiren Daishonin, and it centres around the chanting of this mantra Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, which we do kind of every day in the morning and the evening.
Right. So it's something that's built into the structure of the day. It starts the day and it ends the day.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, without going into too much information, what it is it's like an affirmation in your own Buddha nature, and kind of like a dedication to reveal the inherent Buddhahood within us all, you know? And I kind of got into doing this kind of around the time I left that job, and then I remember in the February of 2025 last year, I went to Japan for about 2 weeks, kind of on a bit of a spiritual journey.
Amazing.
And then I came back, and while I was there also kind of was doing a lot of thinking about like, how do I really want to shape my life and what do I want to do as a profession. And
so just that point of the searching, what do I want to do? If you didn't know what you wanted to do, and I'm just intrigued because I think I like anyone else, sort of struggle with this sometimes. Is like, where do you start getting a bit of traction? Where do you kind of work things out? And was the Buddhist practice kind of part of it?
I think so. I think it was also kind of in this certain way, like this process of reconnecting with like sort of like my younger self and the inner child, and sort of like the dreams and aspirations I'd had when I was younger, which was always to kind of, well, at least since I got into making music as a teenager, was more to be, you know, like a music producer and an engineer, and
so you always
in
knew
studios.
You always knew that music was kind of a bedrock.
I'd say I was always interested in music as a kid. I didn't really start making it until I was about 16.
Yeah.
But so my dad was a journalist as well, actually.
Okay.
He used to write for Melody Maker.
Okay, right, right. So you kind of had that as part of the tapestry of your life.
Like my mum and dad had a lot of records in the house, and I was really exposed to it and was a fan of it.
Nice.
And but yeah, kind of early on in school, I was more into sort of more traditional subjects, kind of mostly like English and humanities, history, all that kind of thing. And then when I was about 16, I met a friend who made hip-hop beats and DJ'd, and kind of just impulsively I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And
nice.
I dropped out of one college that I was at the time. I was doing this international baccalaureate course,
right,
which was, you know, very heavily academic.
Yeah. And
I went to another college to do, you know, one of these BTECs, like an extended diploma in DJing and music production.
Isn't it interesting how a random chance meeting with someone, clicking with their music, stuff like that, changes life, doesn't it?
I think
kind
it
of,
was,
or it comes at a certain time when you're open to that and you're ready for somebody to actually give you a different direction.
I think especially like seeing my friend making hip hop beats and taking old records and like sampling them and sequencing drums and stuff kind of made it feel accessible to me in a way that I'd never really found so much with traditional instruments, you know? And it just felt like, if I, you know, really like focus on this and stick with it, I just had this feeling if I could do it. And now I'm here, like I'm 28 now, so it's like 12 years later.
Yeah.
And I run a music studio in Hackney.
So the music studio, and the music you've always been interested in, are they interconnected? Like, are you able to kind of use the music studio to further your own exploration, or is it a money job where you're just in an environment that you love and you're facilitating other people?
No, I would say it's kind of more of like a passion project and a community thing as well, because like I do make some money from it, but
Yeah.
for full disclosure, I also, claim universal credit, and I'm applying for PIP and stuff because,
Right.
like, I have, seen through the process of getting really burnt out and that kind of thing that I just don't feel like I'm really able to work like a conventional full-time job,
Yeah. And does that sit comfortably with you? The whole idea of, I mean, are you comfortable with having made that decision, and you're like, that I actually know that this works for me in this particular way, as it were? Should we find a bench just down there,
sure.
where there's a bit of shade?
I would say, to be honest, I'm like definitely an advocate that benefits should exist for disabled people, and kind of more generally for like the idea of like universal basic income and all that kind of thing, but yeah, it has definitely been like a grieving process to sort of realize you're disabled as an adult and to run into like these limits with your capacity, and find the traditional sort of path that's laid out for a lot of us of like going to uni and graduating and getting a full-time job, and just doing that didn't work out. But
Interesting. It's interesting you describe it as a grieving process. That's really that's yeah. So when you how long did that sort of grieving process work, as it were, for you?
I would say,
and did you realise it was a grieving process, or did you
to
slowly?
an extent it's kind of still ongoing in certain ways,
Okay.
because it is kind of alienating to be separated from like the standard path that's laid out for us, and also with like a lot of discourse politically and in the media at the moment about like
Grass or bench?
I'm easy, you pick.
Shall we try grass?
Yeah, why not?
You're describing a situation where you're stepping outside what is expected,
Yeah,
and you have to get comfortable with it.
Yeah, but it's giving me like the freedom to kind of grow something slowly and sustainably that is gradually producing more income and making me less dependent on those benefits and that kind of
Should we
thing.
just try here?
But also kind of having the safety net there of knowing that if things get really bad and I have a rough patch with my mental health where I can't really work so much for a few months or whatever, that my rent and most of my bills are just about covered anyway, is quite reassuring, and it's kind of goes to prove the point that like when people don't have to worry so much just about basic survival, that really like the higher levels of kind of human creativity and consciousness and freedom really can be explored. It's like that whole Maslow's hierarchy of needs thing, that you kind of have to take care of your basic needs before you can reach like a point of self-actualization.
Yeah, and it's also you said it's a slow process. It's not something that just happens. It's not like getting a job, starting a job. You're working out as you go.
And it's quite non-linear as well, It's like a lot of ups and downs, and you might have a few really good months and then a few really rough months, and times where you wonder like, why have I taken this path and is it going to work out? But I think a big part of it is kind of like faith in terms of like what you're doing and the purpose of it, And I think,
is it kind of faith in yourself, or is it faith in what you're aiming for?
I think it's a mixture of the two. It's faith in my own ability to do these things, but also faith in like the wider purpose of what I do, because like say the room that I run, the studio, isn't just about my own like personal creative fulfillment, but it's also about providing like an affordable space for other independent musicians to do their thing, and like fostering community and all of these kind of things. So as much as like it might not always be the biggest money maker. It feels like there's kind of like a wider social benefit to it as well.
And does the fact that it involves other people and they're coming to the space, does each of those interactions kind of builds a foundation of confidence in like, this is actually doing what I hoped it would do, kind of thing?
Definitely. I mean, the kind of model I've sort of moved towards now is one where I have 3.5 days a week rented out to these kind of like residency positions, which is like where one person rents like a whole day each week, and they use that for their creative practice. And that kind of covers most of the overheads. And then I have 3.5 days a week for me and my own work, and also for like the booking of, you know, ad hoc engineered sessions with me for people that want to come in and work on stuff. And those bookings are kind of where the profit comes from. But yeah, it's nice because I've got, you know, 4 residents at the studio that are really cool people that all kind of are there week in, week out, working on their thing.
So that's really good. So that's a solid, regular.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what I mean about how, so I've been open I think about 16 months now, and the first year was quite challenging. You know, I lost quite a bit of money in the process of, you know, getting it open and building it, and you know, it was just an empty room. I had to put up all the sound treatment, put all the furniture, put all the gear in, and obviously you're paying rent the whole time you're doing that. And then
you're living on hope.
And then you have to go about attracting a client base, and you're there wondering, oh, is this thing ever going to work out? And then like kind of this year, so like March was a year since I moved in, and going into this second year, it's kind of started to break even and do a small profit most months, and it's nice to be like, okay, cool, we're at the point now where it's sort of self-sustaining, and then having that freedom kind of allows you to then settle in and think about, okay, what's the next stage of growth in order to make it more consistently profitable, you know?
So that first year, there was stress involved with it because there was hope that it's going to work, but there was no guarantee it was going to work. Is now that it's on a bit more of a solid footing, does that allow your own creative juices to flow a bit more because the stress is taken off? Because stress quite often can shrivel us a bit and make us feel like not being outgoing.
I think a lot of the times for the first year, I was very much like in the mindset of just being like the studio owner operator, and sometimes I would go in there and, you know, want to be creative, and I just find myself like doing admin and that kind of thing. And now that it feels a bit more stable, I feel like I can relax and sort of have fun a bit again.
Nice.
And like I was in there yesterday kind of funnily enough, I've got into kind of like, again, with the whole like inner child thing. Like as a kid, I was really into like a lot of the music that my parents were into, which was like a lot of post-punk and 80s music and rock music, you know, like the Smiths, Joy Division, all that kind of thing. And then when I turned about 16, 17, I got really into hip-hop, and I made hip-hop for years. And now I've come back around to kind of trying to write more sort of like rock music, you know. And I was in yesterday playing about with the bass guitar and sequencing some drum loops on my MPC. And
nice. So you can create everything that you kind of need yourself in a way.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, there's still certain instruments where it feels like I can get better results if I pull someone else in, you know. Like I feel quite confident with like drums and bass, but I'm not very good at playing guitar or keys or anything like that.
Play to your strengths.
Yeah, so I definitely think like it's possible to do it all, but sometimes it's easier to collaborate with people where it makes sense, you know.
What about your identity? These 2 years, did you think of yourself last year as I'm a studio owner, studio like musician, and then has that identity changed in terms of how, you know, when you talk to other people, the words you use, what you do, or is
it's kind of a lot of things really. I guess I've, for the past 10 years or so, always thought of myself as like a music producer and then engineer, and then the whole studio owner operator thing came into it. And then increasingly nowadays, sometimes I kind of think of my role as like and I hope this doesn't sound too pretentious, but almost as like a sort of like creative facilitator in a way. Because I think in like music and art scenes, like obviously usually we always celebrate the artists, but there's often not a lot of focus on the people that create like spaces and resources for them to do their thing. So the people that own studios, the people that own venues, this kind of thing.
That's a very good point. The artist always gets is the spear of the public recognition. Yes.
And it's quite nice to sort of have curated this little group of people that are in using the studio regularly, and kind of like see the work that results as a product of me having created the studio, and like the intentionality behind how I've designed it. And in a lot of ways I've like I look back at the first year of it, and in some ways I'm a bit bummed out because I might think, I didn't make as much music in there as I might have liked. But the contrast to it is that the design of the room itself is like its own creative project, know?
Yeah. Got you. And when you go into it, does it give you a good feeling? Or do you sometimes go into it, it's like, work? This is a workspace.
It is sometimes a bit of that too. Like definitely the novelty can wear off after a while. Like because I've got ADHD, I definitely am prone to seeking novelty, and I've got 1,000,001 kind of half-finished projects.
Right.
I've got a lot of drive and impetus to kind of carry out at the start, and then as they become kind of more routine, the sort of magic fades a bit,
Okay.
But I'm trying to cultivate.
So a bit sort of a magpie kind of thing of kind of like lots of shiny things.
Yeah, but I'm trying to cultivate more. I was about to use the word discipline, but I think a better word, and one that I heard someone use recently instead of discipline with regards to creative practice, is devotion, which is more like showing up out of love for it, as opposed to like discipline more has this connotation of kind of like pushing yourself hard, whereas showing up out of devotion is like almost treating your projects in the way you might treat a child, that like sometimes like say if you had a kid, it might be like 4 a.m. and they're crying and you don't want to get up, but you do it because you love them, and in the same way, like there might be times when there's things I need to go and sort out at the studio, and I'd much rather just be like out in the sun enjoying myself, but I show up out of devotion.
Out of devotion, that's a very nice distinction. I'm going to think about ways in which I can use that word for my life too. It's kind of a positive one.
Yeah. There's also a great song called Devotion by Terza featuring Kobe Say. That's one of my favourite songs ever. You should check it out.
I'm going to look it up. So, Cornwall to London, establishing yourself, going through various changes, working things out about yourself as you go. How do you feel about where you're at the moment with your life?
I feel good, like I think I've historically had this tendency to be like very harsh on myself, and always like looking at the next thing and looking at my shortcomings. And like I've been in counselling this year, and one of the things I've kind of been talking to my counsellor about is just being a bit kinder to myself and actually looking back at all the things I've achieved and kind of being more just proud of myself, because as much as there's certain things that I still want to do or wish I'd done by this point, also like I've done a whole lot to come from like living in a small town in Cornwall to like moving up to London on my own at 18, finishing uni, staying here in the city and trying to get on with working in the industry when a lot of people just move home after university.
Yeah.
And doing it all through like a lot of struggles at the same time. Like I lost my mum back in 2020.
Oh, I'm sorry.
While I was still in
that's
uni.
a big hit.
That was a big loss.
Yeah.
And then, going on and coming out of uni and getting into work and like having some levels of success with certain things, but also coming into contact with my limits and discovering more about my neurodiversity and all that kind of thing. And
the thing of limits is an interesting one. I'm just thinking about myself. Limits. I suppose I do subconsciously think I have got limits in certain ways about, or it's like that's not for me. Maybe maybe that's a sort of different way of looking at the limit. How would you define the limits? Do you stop yourself from thinking in certain ways because you're like that's just going to go down a dead end? Is that what you mean?
I don't think that so much in terms of like it necessarily being a fixed thing. I think more what I'm talking about is like capacity in terms of like health and energy and like learning to operate in a way that's genuinely sustainable.
So it's kind of like knowing yourself better.
And kind of just creating balance, and learning to have like perspective on all the different facets of life and how to hold them at the same time, and to simultaneously prioritize your work alongside your health and your personal and mental and spiritual development and relationships and friendships and joy and like all the different things that come with life.
Yes, that's a really nice way you've described that kind of collection of things that are important. A friend of mine said to me yesterday, the day before, she said, what do you do for fun in your life? And it brought me up a bit because I thought I couldn't think of anything. Really? And it's not, I don't think of myself as an unjoyous person or someone who doesn't have fun, but I was suddenly a bit stumped. It's like, what do I do for fun? Maybe we all need to sort of think about the inner child, where we get our enjoyment, and that balance that you talk about. In terms of looking backwards and looking forwards, everything you've described that's happened in recent years, with hindsight you can put a pattern on it. It kind of like it's a jigsaw that falls into place. But when you're kind of looking to the future, it's unknown, you don't know what's going to happen or where you're quite at now. Are you quite open? Are you quite open to roll ahead into the future, or do you kind of want to put markers up ahead and go, I want these things and these things to happen?
I think I'm quite open in a lot of ways because as much as I do have like ideas of things I would like to do, I think also you have to be like open to the different possibilities and tangents that life throws at us, because if you're too fixed on a certain path, often you can kind of miss like the spontaneity or the randomness of what life actually throws at us. But there are like a couple of things over the next few years that I've sort of been looking into. One of them is I was thinking about next year going back and getting my master's maybe.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
Kind of actually going in a slightly different direction from my undergrad. So like my undergrad was music recording and production, and I finished that and I came out and went into doing all the things I've done, and like the idea of doing a master's in music production doesn't really excite me because I already do it. But the thing that does excite me more is doing some kind of course in either like popular music studies or musicology or potentially like cultural studies or something like that.
Got you.
And learning how to kind of research and write about music and other art scenes from more of a kind of like humanitarian and cultural perspective, because there's a lot of like really amazing cool stuff going on in London that I feel like isn't well documented enough, both in the spaces of like academia, in terms of like music media, and like I mentioned, my dad has his background working for Melody Maker and stuff, and as a kid I was always really interested in English and humanities before I got into doing music. And to me that feels like a way of kind of meshing the two together, and also kind of tapping in back into this sort of like intellectual curiosity that I feel like has been a little bit missing at times since I've left uni,
Yeah. And it's also about connections. It's about connecting to other scenes, understanding them. It's about engaging with people. It's kind of it's almost sounds as if it's kind of almost broadening your horizon.
Yeah.
You want to push it a bit further ahead, and sort of diversify a bit. That's good. That's exciting.
Yeah, because I think I would probably study part-time and keep running my studio at the same time and that kind of thing. But yeah, potentially like down the road adding in, there's a few different roads it could lead, either to doing music writing or more research or teaching or lecturing or that kind of thing. But as much as I love this whole freelance thing and running the studio, it's quite like volatile a lot of the times. And like I say, at the moment I've got a bit of a safety net, but you don't always know how long that will be there with the political climate and stuff. So maybe eventually having a little part-time gig a few days a week, either writing or like I say, doing research or lecturing or something, could like complement what I do. There's a confidence and there's a bravery in that approach that you're describing. You know it's out there, you want to engage with it, and you're not afraid to sort of like dive into it a bit. It's a bit like you taking on the studio. It's kind of like you're someone who's brave enough to take a step and go, I'm just gonna see where this goes, because I think a lot of us are held back by a nice idea. I couldn't do it, but you're like, I can do it. Yeah, I think it comes back again to like the faith thing, and kind of like a certain level of like trust in the universe that like if you like as a Buddhist, obviously I believe in like karma, which is basically the principle of like action and reaction, quite grounded in science as well, with the whole every action has an equal and opposite reaction. But yeah, just like by being like acting in a way that's like good natured and genuine, and continuing to like invest in myself and the things around me, I feel like there's a certain level of like protection that comes from the universe, in terms of like you might stumble but like you'll always kind of find your feet, sort of thing. And definitely it's been about 5 years since I graduated now, and like a lot of the times I haven't really known exactly what it is I'm going to do to get by, but I've kind of just had faith that it will work out, and somehow more or less it always does. And you do go through moments where things seem like really low and like it's not working out, and you might start to get a little bit low on faith, and then generally like just in time when you need it, like the next thing arrives in life that's like, that's the thing I'd been waiting for, or like, that makes sense of like this period of doubt that I've just been through, or like that thing that didn't work out created the space for me to do this next thing that's really exciting. My mood's lifted in a lot in this past week or so. I had a period kind of early on this year of being like quite depressed and quite lost for a while, and going through a lot of troubles and tribulations, and in this last couple of weeks or so it seems to have sort of lifted and kind of made sense again.
Brilliant.
And
Brilliant. Oh, that's really good to hear.
yeah, just grateful to be alive and for all the possibilities that it brings us, you know.